Dim light of the rusty nail flickered uneasily, casting long shadows that danced across the scuffed wooden floor. George Halloway perched on a bar stool, clutching a glass of whiskey that sat untouched except for the swirling amber liquid, a metaphor for his faded career. Once the face of country music, he now sang to a handful of late-night patrons, their weariness eclipsing any spark of excitement. The echoes of applause were hauntingly absent. The loneliness was thick. As he strummed his guitar, a worn, beloved instrument, the notes wove through the stale air like ghosts longing to be heard. He closed his eyes, pouring himself into the familiar chords, but a knot tightened in his chest. The small room, filled with the whispers of forgotten dreams and the clinking of glasses, felt suffocating. Each note brought forth flashes of a time he cherished, bright lights, roaring crowds, and a voice that felt like home. With each strum, memories tumbled around him. A younger version of himself scanning the crowd, soaking in their adoration. Glistening guitars and radiant smiles, the joy of songwriting that flowed like a river into the Texas plains. But those days felt so far away, now overshadowed by shadows of regret and isolation. Suddenly, a waitress appeared, placing an envelope on the bar with a delicate touch. George's heart raced. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable. Maggie. The sight of her name sent a jolt through him, igniting a mix of nostalgia and trepidation. He reached for the envelope, fingers trembling, as the familiar scent of old paper filled his nostrils. As he opened it, he felt a rush of memories flood back, overwhelming and bittersweet. "Dear George," and it began. "It's been too long." His breath caught in his throat as if the words were alive, pulling him into a whirlwind of recollections. Sunlit days spent dreaming, sharing laughter and secrets beneath the sprawling Texas sky, their youthful hopes for the future merging like the sunset over the horizon. George read on, his heart heavy with every line. "I think of our promises," Maggie continued, "the things we left unsaid." The weight of her words sat like a stone in his stomach. The moment they had parted ways, the silence that replaced their shared music now felt deafening. He remembered her bright smile, the innocence of their friendship starkly contrasted against the painful reality of their paths diverging. "There's something in the air, George, something we've never addressed," she had written, and he could feel a knot tightening again, a reminder of all they had never spoken of. The dreams he abandoned haunted him, whispers of opportunities lost, and unfulfilled potential tracing their way back through the years. The letter slipped from his grasp, falling onto the bar with a soft thud that reverberated in the quiet. For a moment, his surroundings faded away. The muffled conversations became white noise, and he was left alone, grappling with the depth of his solitude. He felt as if the world around him blurred, and only the letter remained clear, a lifeline to a past he had long kept at arm's length. Could he find the courage to confront the ghosts that loomed large in his life? Did he dare to reach out to Maggie, to unravel the tapestry of shared dreams and unspoken words? The weight of what lay unsaid pressed heavily upon him, and yet, in that very moment of despair, a flicker of hope ignited within him. Tonight would be different. The path ahead was uncertain, but George realized that perhaps, just perhaps, he could begin the journey back to a life filled with connection rather than sorrow. The night before, the words from Maggie's letter hung in the air, leading George to the edge of remembrance. Morning light filtered through the dusty blinds of his small apartment, illuminating forgotten pictures tacked to the wall. Shadows of a different time danced in the warm glow, silhouettes of young dreamers grinning against the vast Texan landscape. He rose slowly, each movement a reminder of the years that had slipped through his fingers. A deep breath, and he picked up his guitar, its weight familiar. Strumming softly, the notes bloomed like wildflowers from their roots buried in the soil of nostalgia. The chords spoke of friendship, of a promise made in the innocence of youth. As he played, the scene shifted. The world faded away, and George found himself transported back to that sun-soaked day at the park, where he and Maggie had spent countless afternoons bringing dreams to life. The air was thick with laughter, the sweet scent of blooming wildflowers carried by the gentle breeze. "Can you believe we'll be famous one day?" young George exclaimed, tossing aside blades of grass as he took a seat beneath a sprawling oak tree. His eyes sparkled with a wild passion that felt uncontainable. Maggie, her dark curls shimmering in the sunlight, plunked a string on her own guitar. Definitely, I'll have my own band, and you'll be my star. We'll play for crowds like the ones at the big concerts." Her laughter floated, a melody that danced with the summer air. They shared secrets, each whisper woven into a tapestry of hope. "I swear, no matter what happens, we'll always come back to this place," she promised, her voice steady and true. He vowed to keep that promise close, the warmth of their bond tangible. The warmth faded as George pulled himself back to the present, the guitar resting against him like a comforting embrace. But reality crashed back like an unwelcome wave. The echoes of their shared laughter faded into silence, and the truth that he hadn't followed through on their dreams loomed large. Where had it all gone astray? The haunting solitude in his apartment pierced through him. As if summoned by his thoughts, his phone chimed. It was a message from Eli, his former manager, no doubt seeking to reconnect. "Hey George, I know we've had our differences, but can we talk?" The screen glowed, the words sharp and unforgiving. George hesitated, his heart racing at the idea of facing Eli. Their fallout had stung him deep, betrayal and lost trust laced with hurt. Eli had once been a brother in arms, the person who believed in his talent when the world was cold. But then trust had fractured under the weight of greed and ambition. "What do I even say to him?" George murmured, voice barely above a whisper. Old wounds reopened at the thought of confronting yet another ghost from his past. He took a long swig from his whiskey glass, the burn bringing a fleeting comfort. But it was in that moment of doubt that George felt something shift within him, a deep-seated desire to confront his past. Taking a deep breath, he picked up the guitar again, and summer memories unfolded like petals before him. He could almost see Maggie leaning against the oak tree, strumming her guitar, urging him to sing louder, to put his heart into every note. "You always held back, George," she used to tease. "Let it out. Show them what you've got." He closed his eyes, letting the air fill with her words. The music flowed in a powerful wave. He could see the little town of hill country sprawl before him, filled with the people who had cheered him on. The shared moments of youthful arrogance, aspirations painted with vibrant strokes of hope, all guiding him back to who he once was. Later that evening, George drove through the quiet streets of his old hometown, a sense of familiarity washing over him. The stars shimmered overhead, echoing the hopes he'd once channeled into song. Driving past familiar landmarks, the old diner where they ate fries and shared dreams, the strip mall where they once performed on a makeshift stage, each place was a chapter of his life, untouched yet vividly alive within his mind. He parked outside the old park, where children now played in the fading light. The laughter filled the air, and the scent of jasmine and fresh earth rose, wrapping him in the essence of home. George closed his eyes, memories flooding back like an old movie reel. Days spent with Maggie, chasing fireflies, creating melodies together, believing in a future that sparkled with promise. As he stepped from the car, he pulled his guitar from the back seat, cradling it like a long-lost friend. The familiar weight grounded him. Sitting on a bench, he began to strum softly, the notes cascading like a gentle stream. "You were right, Maggie. We did leave things unsaid." He whispered to the night, hoisting his voice as he sang to the stars, the echoes of the past intertwining with the hopes that remained within him. It was a cathartic release, the kind that seeped into the very soil around him, binding him again to his roots. The music carried, a simple tune that bore the weight of his longing and the warmth of their memories. Like a promise renewed, the stars above seemed to twinkle in agreement, urging him forward. Tonight would not just be about remembering, it would be about reclaiming the life he once envisioned, the first step toward mending broken ties both with Maggie and with himself. He could feel it, the stirring of the old dreams, a friend's voice entwined with his own, hauntingly sweet, whispering encouragement. It was time to heal, time to let the music out once more and face the echoes of a past he had long tried to forget. The glow of the sun rose tenderly the following morning, casting warm hues of orange and gold over the quiet town. George sat on his porch, cradling his coffee cup, listening to the familiar sounds of life awakening around him. The distant hum of a lawnmower and the joyful chirping of birds reminded him of the days when everything felt infinite, filled with potential and dreams, but solitude weighed heavily upon him. As he sipped his coffee, the bitterness lingered on his tongue, a stark reminder of the dreams that had slipped away. Memories of his past performances flickered through his mind, moments of joy overshadowed by years spent yearning for something lost. His phone rang, jolting him out of his reverie. The name on the screen made his heart race. Eli Jenkins, his former manager. They hadn't spoken since their bitter fallout a year prior, but something deep within George stirred. Perhaps this was the moment to face his past. "George?" Eli's voice came through, hesitant yet sincere. "I was hoping we could talk. What's there to discuss?" George replied, bitterness trembling in his tone. Eli's betrayal had stung. It had turned friendship into a painful memory. Eli paused, the silence thick between them. "I made mistakes. I let ambition cloud my judgment and lost sight of what mattered. I miss working with you." George clenched his jaw. "You lost sight of our friendship when you prioritized the money." "I know, and I regret it immensely," Eli pleaded. "But I'm here now. I want to help you come back to the music." George hesitated, feeling a mixture of resentment and the faintest flicker of hope. "What do you expect from me now, Eli?" A chance to make things right. As he listened, George felt an unsettling warmth flutter in his chest. Eli had been more than just a manager. He had been a part of the band, a brother. "I'll think about it," George finally murmured, hanging up feeling both heavier and lighter at once. That night, he wandered into a local bar, the air buzzing with excitement. Familiar sounds of laughter and camaraderie washed over him as he entered, beckoning him to reconnect with this world he once inhabited. The pulse of music filled the room with youthful exuberance. In one corner, a group of aspiring musicians belted out their latest songs with every ounce of passion they could muster. George, taken by their energy and enthusiasm, felt an old longing tug at his heart. "Can I join you?" he asked, mustering what courage he could. The lead singer's eyes widened with recognition. "George Holloway. Wow, we've heard your songs all our lives." Their excitement ignited something inside him, a spark of the old George igniting anew. He grabbed his guitar, and soon their music burst forth, filling the room with nostalgia and a blend of lively harmonies. With every strum, he fought to drown out the shadows of doubt that lingered. Yet, with each note, the loneliness that had been his constant companion reasserted itself. As the performance went on, cheers filled the space, yet he felt the weight of his past bearing down, a reminder of the dreams he had let slip away. After their set, the young musicians gathered around George, eager to hear stories from his glory days. He spoke of epic concerts, laughter shared with Maggie, and moments that shaped him. Each word lightened his heart, yet the stark contrast between their burgeoning hopes and his own unfulfilled longing drew a veil of melancholy over the conversation. As he drove home that night, streetlights flickering past the window, George realized how much he longed to feel connected again, both to the music and to the people in his life. He wrestled with the urgency of it all, the call to reach out to Maggie, to reconcile with Eli, to face the ghosts of his past head-on. Pulling into the driveway, he felt something shift within him. The heaviness didn't dissolve completely, but a glimmer of resolution began to form. Perhaps he could reclaim the pieces of himself he had lost, one step at a time. Tomorrow he'd contact Maggie, start the healing process. For the first time in a long while, the prospect of reaching out didn't scare him. It felt like stepping into the warmth of the sun after a long winter. It was time to push against the shadows and find light again. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains of George's spare bedroom, casting soft patterns on the floor. A new day filled with possibilities welcomed him, a chance to mend the frayed edges of his past. George sat up, resolve flooding through him, knowing today held a weight he would carry with pride. It was time to reach out. He grabbed his guitar, the familiar instrument feeling like an extension of himself. Strumming softly, he lost himself in the melodies that had once flowed effortlessly from his fingers. Each note felt like a step back toward the person he once was, the artist he yearned to reclaim. He played quietly, letting his heart direct the rhythm, hoping it might carry his message to the universe. With a deep breath, he grabbed his phone, nerves prickling under his skin. Maggie's number sat there, a digit he hadn't dared touch in far too long. The weight of unspoken words pressed heavily as he scrolled through memories of their time together. He hesitated, then clicked call. The ringing felt like an eternity, each sound echoing his racing heartbeat. Finally, he heard her voice, filled with surprise. "George, is that really you?" Hearing her warmth wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. "Maggie, it's me," he replied, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions roiling within. "I know it's been a while." "A while?" She laughed lightly, though he could hear a slight tremor in her voice. "It's been years, George." He swallowed hard. "Yeah, I've been lost, but I thought I could reach out. I want to talk, maybe see you." His heart raced as silence enveloped them. He could imagine her processing his words, a blend of surprise and caution swirling in the air. Finally, she spoke. "I'd like that. How about the old park?" "Same spot?" "Same spot," he echoed, the weight of nostalgia pulling him in. "I'll be there." As he made his way to the park, George was filled with an energy he hadn't felt in years. Excitement marinated with nerves. The familiar path greeted him, each step a resonance of laughter and dreams shared under the comfort of their oak tree. Though it had been shadowed in waiting, today felt transformed. As he arrived, he spotted Maggie across the grass, her figure instantly recognizable, a vibrant spirit, even outside the memories they had forged. She seemed bathed in sunlight, her dark hair shimmering as she turned. For a moment, time froze, a reminder of everything they had been, everything they hadn't said. "George!" Maggie jumped up, a mix of surprise and warmth spilling from her voice. They stood there for what felt like ages, strangers wrapped in familiarity. "It's been too long," he finally said, a sincere laugh escaping him. "You look, well, to me, man, you look like you've seen a ghost," she teased, stepping closer, her smile softening the air. They settled onto the familiar bench, tendrils of anticipation pulling at the edges of their conversation. It felt like the first move in a dance, both hesitant and hopeful. "I didn't know what to expect," George confessed, his voice low. "I've missed this place. I've missed you." "I've missed you too, George, but you vanished." A hint of regret punctuated her words, a reminder of the time that had slipped away. "You didn't even reach out." He nodded, feeling the weight of her truth. "After everything that happened with the band, I lost my way. I didn't know how to deal with it, and then I just kept pushing everyone away." Maggie's expression softened, an understanding in her gaze. "Sometimes we try so hard to protect ourselves. We cut off everything else. But you don't have to do this alone anymore." Heart pounding, George felt the walls he had built slowly begin to crumble. "I'm trying to find my way back," he admitted. "The music is calling me again. I just need to know how to answer." Maggie leaned back, taking in the layers of his confession. "Music has always been a part of you. You taught me that it was a language of its own." A gentle breeze rustled the leaves above them, guiding their conversation into a deeper intimacy. "I wrote a song last night," George confessed. "For the first time in what feels like forever, it's raw, but it came out with everything I have wanted to say." "Can I hear it?" she asked, curiosity glimmering in her eyes. With a smile, George grabbed his guitar, the weight feeling right in his hands once more. He tuned it neatly, the sound soothing his frayed nerves. As he played, he poured his heart into the notes, singing about longing, lost time, and the hope of mending broken strands of connection. Every chord resonated with the unspoken words they both needed to hear. When he finished, he looked at her, breathless. Maggie's eyes were glistening, emotion wrapped delicately around her features. "That was beautiful, George. You've captured everything we've left unsaid. So I hope it didn't come off as too self-indulgent?" He joked gently, the edges of vulnerability still lingering. "You've always seen me though, right? Even in my silence." "Always," she assured him, and the word resonated deeply, like a promise shared amid unseen bonds. The conversation flowed effortlessly from there, past hurt and present hopes, weaving together in the warmth of their renewed connection. Laughter returned between them, painting over the shadows of loneliness. "Do you remember when we played at the county fair?" Maggie asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Of course, you'd stolen the spotlight with that dance number." They shared stories filled with joy, revisiting memories that reminded them of the vibrancy of their youth, the dreams that once seemed so possible. It was as if they were reclaiming pieces of themselves lost in the winding paths of adulthood. As daylight began to fade, George felt an unfamiliar lightness welling in his heart. He reached for Maggie's hand, surprised by the warmth that spread between them. "Thank you for being here," he whispered, "for helping me find my way back. You were always meant to find your way home, George. Just remember, you're not alone anymore." For the first time in a long while, the shadows that had often clouded George's heart began to lift. He was no longer just haunted by memories. He was ready to step forward, with Maggie by his side, embracing life anew. Returning home, the familiar weight of his guitar felt different, lighter. It wasn't just an instrument. It felt like a key to unlock a future filled with possibilities. As he drifted off to sleep, he found solace in knowing that healing lay not just in forgiveness, but in reconnection, in rediscovering the music of his soul. The soft rays of dawn cut through the window, casting gentle patterns on George's face as he woke. The warmth of the previous day still lingered, encasing him in a cocoon of newfound hope. He immediately reached for his guitar, fingers brushing over the strings, igniting a familiar buzz of anticipation. With a gentle strum, he found himself lost in thought, reflecting on the promise he made to himself, to embrace the healing power of music. He had a vision now. Inspired by his conversation with Maggie, he wanted to channel the emotion they rediscovered into something tangible. It felt like inspiration sparked, a fire that needed to be stoked. He spent the morning crafting songs that intertwined the threads of their shared history with the pain and dreams that had shaped him. Each note felt like a thread weaving them closer, binding them together in a tapestry filled with both melancholy and joy. As he penned the lyrics, memories poured forth, accompanied by heartfelt chords. He wrote about the summer nights filled with laughter, the heartbreak of lost moments, and the tiny flickers of hope that blossomed in between. By afternoon, he was ready. He had a plan to unveil his newly forged music at a local open mic night, a chance to share his heart not just with Maggie, but with the community that raised him, an audience he had long avoided. He felt anchored by the memories and the support of the people who had always believed in him. With the sun setting, he found himself in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of his favorite shirt. His expression reflected nervous energy in the shimmers of twilight. He nudged his guitar case towards the door, just as a soft knock interrupted the quiet. It was Maggie standing there, her face alive with excitement and a hint of nervousness. "Hey, I thought I'd go with you," she said, her warmth spilling over him like the sunlight. A smile broke across George's face. "You really don't have to. It's just me showing up in front of a crowd." "Exactly," she replied with a playful smirk. "You need backup." As they walked to the venue, the familiar streets enveloped them in a comforting embrace. The lights twinkled from the small shops, illuminating their shared path. Conversations flowed easily, each moment between them layered with ease and excitement, bringing George further from the burdens of the past. By the time they arrived, the bar was buzzing with energy, filled with locals enjoying the evening. Small groups gathered, some caught in conversations, others with drinks in hand, all buzzing with creative spirit. George surveyed the room, feeling both anticipation and unease swirl within him. As he signed up for the open mic, he realized that this was more than an opportunity to perform. It was a moment to reclaim his narrative, to show everyone, including himself, that he was ready to rise again. When his name was called, George froze for a heartbeat, anxiety lacing through him. Anxiety clutched at his chest, but Maggie's steady gaze invited him to step forward. He could feel the warmth of her presence, a silent affirmation that he was not alone. As he took to the stage, George set his guitar down and scanned the crowd. Familiar faces smiled back, old friends, family members, even strangers waiting for magic to unfold. Drawing in a breath, he placed his fingers on the strings, letting the soft vibrations awaken his spirit. The first few notes flowed freely, and as he began to sing, it was as if the world around him faded. His song wove the stories shared with Maggie, layering the past, the pain, and the hope. With each line, he released fragments of himself, notes floating into the air like whispers from his soul. The audience listened intently, drawn into the narrative, his journey of love, loss, and finally, rediscovery. As he reached the chorus, he glanced at Maggie, finding her eyes glistening with tears. That fleeting connection filled him with strength. He realized he was bringing them along through the emotions he had long battled alone. The final notes rang out, and silence enveloped him for a heartbeat before applause erupted. Cheers and claps filled the space, reverberating against the walls. George felt his heart swell, the warmth spreading through him like a balm for past wounds. As he stepped off the stage, George was met with a wave of hugs and congratulations. The joy radiating from familiar faces wrapped around him, convincing him that perhaps he had finally found his way back home. Among the crowd, Maggie approached, pride shining in her eyes. "You were incredible, George. You brought the house down," she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around him in a tight embrace. "I couldn't have done it without you," he confessed, the recognition of her support still echoing in his mind. After feeling overwhelmed by the exuberance of the moment, George found himself outside, the air fresh and cool against his skin. He breathed deeply, savoring the shift that had occurred within him. It wasn't just the performance, it was the recognition of what he had set in motion, the journey back toward reconnecting with the love he thought he had lost. Maggie joined him, her laughter dancing in the evening breeze. "How does it feel?" His smile radiated from within. "It feels right, Maggie. Like I'm waking up from a long dream." "You've got a lot more to share," she encouraged, inspiration pouring from her like sunlight through leaves. "This community needs you, George." As they walked together under the stars, George knew that this was simply the beginning. Each night reunited him with the essence of who he was, the light slowly returning to the corners of his heart. They discussed plans, what their next steps would be, and how he could begin shaping his music into something even larger, something that could carry the stories of others, just like his. "Will you help me?" he asked, heart full of hope. Her eyes sparkled with sincerity. "Always, I believe in you, George. We have a journey ahead of us." With the promise of tomorrow ahead, they continued walking side by side, their laughter echoing into the night, a melody of renewed dreams and undeniable connection, a song that had finally found its voice. Days turned into weeks, and the rhythms of George's life slowly began to shift. The open mic night ignited a fire within him that wouldn't dim. With Maggie's unwavering support, he immersed himself in music, the instrument becoming a companion to his thoughts and dreams. He felt as if he had reclaimed his identity, albeit one rich with scars, hope, and the warmth of renewed bonds. One afternoon, George and Maggie set up on the porch of his home, the sun dipping low in the sky, painting everything in soft hues of orange and pink. Music sheets sprawled across the table, filled with the lyrics George had written, words reminiscent of their shared past and the healing journey they embarked upon together. "This one feels ready," he announced, strumming his guitar. "It's about letting go, about facing the pain and choosing to rise." He paused, looking at her intently. "I want it to reflect not just my story, but the stories of others who've struggled." Maggie leaned closer, excitement written on her face. "I love it. It's a beautiful message." She watched as his fingers danced over the strings, the melody sweeping her up, carrying the sentiments of hope and renewal with it. As he played, she felt the connection deepening, an unspoken understanding that throbbed in the shared silence. She imagined them performing together, not just for their local community, but reaching out to a much larger audience, to those who might need to hear those very words of courage and perseverance. One evening, after a particularly soulful jam session, George felt a weight of contemplation wash over him. "Maggie, do you think we're ready to make this more than just a dream?" She sat there, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Absolutely. Let's start looking at venues. Start small. We could record a few tracks and share them online." George nodded, his heart swelling with excitement. Together they began seeking out small venues, coffee houses, local festivals, anywhere that welcomed new talent. They created a plan to record a few songs, not just for themselves but for the world, a way to contribute to the healing they both experienced. As the weeks stretched into months, they immersed themselves in the creative process. Each session felt therapeutic, allowing George to confront his past while forging a brighter future. The supportive laughter and late-night conversations swirled around them, the chemistry between them palpable. One afternoon, as they were about to leave for a local event, Maggie approached George while he adjusted his guitar strap. "You know, this feels like our second chance, not just at music, but at life." He studied her, feeling gratitude ripple through him. "You've been incredible, Maggie. I don't think I could have done this without you believing in me." Her gaze softened, an earnest smile lighting her features. "We believe in each other, George. We always have." The night of their first performance together, the cozy venue was filled with eager faces. Warm lights illuminated the small stage as a soft crowd embraced their presence. George felt a whirlwind of emotions. Nerves and excitement surged through him. He glanced at Maggie, her confidence grounding him amidst the chaos. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward as the microphone lifted to his lips. "This is our first song together, and it's about finding hope amidst the shadows," and he began, looking out at the crowd. With each strum of his guitar, memories clashed with the promise of new beginnings. The first notes danced through the air, and as he sang, he felt the intimacy of the moment, the way their shared experiences draped over the song, wrapping it in authenticity. Maggie joined him with her voice weaving seamlessly into his, her harmonies adding depth and richness to the tune. The crowd soaked it all in, their expressions transforming from curious interest to heartfelt connection. In that moment, it wasn't just about performing. It was about sharing a piece of their journey, exposing their vulnerabilities, and leading others through their own battles. Together, they stood united, pouring their souls into the music. As the final notes echoed through the venue, applause erupted around them, lifting their spirits higher. George's heart raced, and he could barely contain the smile spreading across his face. They exchanged a glance, exhilaration coursing through them. After the performance, several audience members approached, sharing their heartfelt encouragement. Each compliment resonated deeply, validating the fears and intentions that had once held him hostage. "You two have something special. Don't stop sharing," one audience member said, clasping George's shoulder firmly. Later, as they stepped outside to embrace the crisp night air, both exhilaration and disbelief washed over them. "We did it," George breathed, a beaming smile lighting his face. Maggie nodded, laughter spilling from her lips. "And we can do it again, and again." Driving home, they talked animatedly about the next steps. Goals began to materialize, from recording albums to planning future shows, each idea igniting new enthusiasm within them. Yet as George exited the car, a familiar shadow of doubt began to creep back in. A voice whispered in his mind, reminding him of the boundaries he had set up around himself, the fear of falling back into solitude and despair. Maggie sensed his shift. "What's going on, George?" He sighed, uncertainty clouding his thoughts. "I just hope this isn't fleeting. What if I can't keep doing this? What if the darkness comes back?" Maggie stepped closer, a sense of urgency in her tone. "The darkness is part of us, George, but that doesn't mean we have to let it define us. We face it together. Remember what we discussed? Music is our lighthouse." He looked into her eyes, buoyed by her determination. "You're right. We can shine together." With a fresh sense of commitment settling in his heart, George understood this journey was meant to embrace both light and shadow. It was about finding strength amidst vulnerability. As he returned inside, he felt the stirrings of a renewed purpose. Tomorrow would hold more opportunities to pour his heart into their music, further connect with his community, and grow into the person he was meant to be. No longer would he shy away from who he was or where he had come from. The past held lessons, yes, but the future gleamed with promise, ready to be written into songs. And with Maggie by his side, he felt empowered to embrace that journey wholeheartedly. He could finally believe in the path ahead, a melody, a story waiting to unfold. As spring unfolded, George and Maggie embraced the rhythm of renewed purpose. Their summer plans solidified, igniting a creative fire that thrummed in the air. They quickly became a cherished part of the local music scene, their performances resonating deeply with those seeking connection through song. One warm evening, the stage at a local fair beckoned. Twinkling lights bathed the area in a golden glow, and as George took in the crowd, a surge of anticipation coursed through him. "This feels special," he murmured to Maggie as they set up. "Tonight's going to be magical," she replied, her enthusiasm contagious. "We have the chance to touch lives." As they stepped onto the stage, the buzzing audience welcomed them, eager eyes searching for something real. "This song is for everyone who feels lost," George began, and as he strummed the opening chords, the air thickened with expectation. The lyrics poured from him, filled with vulnerability and hope. Each note was a thread binding him to the crowd, revealing shared struggles and stories. The intimacy of the moment transcended the typical performer-audience divide. It was genuine connection, a powerful exchange of emotions. As their melody soared, George looked into the faces before him, finally feeling at home in this space. When the last chord rang out, applause erupted, a sea of clapping hands that buoyed their spirits. Maggie squeezed his hand, a broad smile reflecting their shared triumph. Mingling with the audience after, they were met with heartfelt gratitude and stories that intertwined with their own. An older couple shared fond memories of dancing to George's earlier songs, their eyes sparkling with nostalgia. "Your music brought us together," the wife said, eliciting warmth in George's chest. As the night wore on, George felt a powerful sense of belonging wash over him. The shadows of his past were now stepping aside for the light he had rediscovered. When the festivities wrapped up, Maggie turned to George, her enthusiasm palpable. "Can you believe this? We're part of something bigger. It feels right," he replied, looking around. More than music, its connection to people. As they headed home under a canopy of stars, George carried a mix of exhilaration and revelation. The journey had not been simple, but each note and every encounter had brought him closer to acceptance and love, both for himself and the world. On the porch, he strummed his guitar lightly, feeling the calming embrace of the night. Maggie sat beside him, her effortless presence a reminder of their shared strength. "What's next for us?" he asked, eager to embrace the future. "We keep moving forward," she said with conviction. "We let our music guide us." With renewed purpose swelling in his chest, George envisioned a path before him filled with new songs and larger audiences. The thought ignited a spark within. How exhilarating it was to think of the lives they could affect together. The sun rose on a new day, lighting their path towards uncharted territories of creativity. The past, with its lessons and scars, had shaped him, but it was no longer a shadow over his heart. Instead, it was a foundation on which to build. George realized it was time to embrace the journey ahead, an adventure waiting to be written in melodies, shared experiences, and stories of connection. "Let's start our next chapter," he urged, his excitement palpable. Maggie reached for her guitar, their instruments becoming a bridge to the world awaiting their sound. As they struck the first notes of a new song, a gentle breeze carried their music into the dawn, weaving together a celebration of life, hope, and the power of human connection. Together they were ready for whatever the next verse of their story held.